God, Becky, look at her butt.
Hi, and welcome to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio program, where we air live every Tuesday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on KineticHiFi.com. The Stop Chasing Skinny podcast talks about everything that you need to know about creating a fit life and to stop just chasing skinny and trying to fit your body into some predetermined shape. So it's really about using your body, enjoying, and finding all the different things that you can do in life to enjoy the outdoors and the indoors and just living. So tonight we have a special guest. I was introduced to Shannon through my boyfriend. My boyfriend's in the Coast Guard, and we do a lot of fun fitness stuff. And if anybody follows me on social media, you can find all of the stuff we just did last weekend. It ties in perfectly with today's guest and his story. Last weekend we did a Spartan Beast, which is it was 12 plus miles. I think it was closer to 14, something like that. But that was running and some obstacles. And so when during my growing up, part of my whole fitness journey has been through swimming as well. So I swam in high school, and I played water polo in high school and in college. I was a lifeguard in college, and then I also did triathlons. So I kind of have a frame of reference for this 24-hour swim that Shannon's getting ready to do. So when I finished my 13 or 14 miles on the weekend of running, it really reminded me that the other day we were watching Shannon do laps, and we were only at 13 miles, and he still had like 4 hours to go. So for anybody who is a swimmer, who is a runner, the idea of swimming for that many miles, I think it's pretty incredible. So Shannon is here today to talk about what he is doing this 24-hour swim for. It's a really, really important cause, and I found the cause very interesting as well as his training schedule because it's a lot of stuff that you wouldn't really think about. So Shannon, welcome, and could you just do a little introduction of yourself, please?
Hey, Stephanie. Thanks for having me. Yep. So originally from Charleston, joined the Coast Guard, enlisted in 1993. And served about 11 years as a helicopter rescue swimmer for the Coast Guard at Air Station Elizabeth City in North Carolina and Air Station Savannah in Savannah, Georgia, and received orders to serve here at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Charleston about 3 years ago. So I'm on my final year of a 4-year tour with that, and being from Charleston, it's a good opportunity to be back home and serve right here in Charleston. So,
yeah, this is a great area, isn't it?
It is. I love it. Lots to do. Lots of ways to stay active. That's for sure.
Yeah. So obviously, one of the ways that you stay active is swimming. So we're gonna dive right into your training because I'm really interested to hear what your training has been looking like. I was there, so kind of the way I found out about you was that my boyfriend kept saying, I have to count laps today. And there's this guy that I work with that is swimming for 6 hours today, and so I'm going to have to count laps. And I was like, 6 hours? And then he said 9 hours. And I was like, what? So I asked what you were getting ready for, and then how you were training. So let's talk a little bit about your training, and then we'll start talking about what you're training for.
Sure. So the swim itself, like you mentioned earlier, it's a 24-hour swim that I'm planning to do, 24 hours straight in an enclosed pool. And I've been fortunate enough to have the city of Charleston back me on this, so they're allowing me to use one of their 50-meter pools. But up until this point, I've been swimming in a 25-meter pool.
That's a lot of turns.
It is. It's a lot like being in a hamster wheel, to be honest with you. But so jumping into this, it's really uncharted territory for me. Obviously, being a Coast Guard rescue swimmer for that many years, I mean, the training is pretty intense. The training program to even get accepted into the helicopter rescue swimmer program, it's about a year-long process to train for that. Lots of push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, kind of the standard military stuff that you'd see in any of these military documentaries. But this is something different for me. Getting in the pool, swimming without any sort of, fins or mask or, anything like that, some of the standard gear that we use in helicopter rescue operations. And for this extended period of time, as someone mentioned earlier, the mind game that goes into something like this is all uncharted territory for me. So
Yeah.
I really just kind of took a guess at this. I did some research online to try to figure out maybe what would be best for me as far as diet and kind of how to approach this thing without killing my shoulders in the process. And
yeah, a lot of overuse injuries could happen in preparing for something
absolutely.
like this.
I mean, you're talking rotator, back, neck injuries, things like that. So, I mean, it's acute in the beginning, but becomes chronic as the training continues. So you got to be really careful with flexibility and your diet. So, I just decided, I just kind of pulled some numbers out of a hat and said, hey, I'll start with a 6 mile swim.
Okay.
And so I just concentrated on distance for a little while and how much distance I could cover over time.
Okay.
So how long is it going to take me to swim 6 miles?
Mm-hmm.
And,
do you remember how long it took you to swim 6 miles?
I don't at this point. The only thing I'm looking at now is the next 12-hour swim. Everything, it's kind of interesting. It's all part of the mind game, and the approach to this is kind of like the Navy SEALs say, the only easy day was yesterday.
Right.
What I did doesn't matter anymore. The fact that I was a helicopter rescue swimmer, I mean, that's in my heart. And it's what kind of is in my gut to keep me going. But all that's behind me. The 6 mile swim, I think I did an 8 mile swim or 8 or 9 mile swim next, and then a 10 mile swim. And those 3 were just concentrating on distance over time.
Okay.
And then from there, I decided at the 10 mile mark, I needed to start concentrating on hours.
Yeah.
Since the ultimate goal here is to swim for 24 hours straight.
Yeah.
So I did the 10 mile and finished that up, and I think I did that in 8 hours.
Okay.
And then from there, I just said, okay, this is a good time to go ahead and change and start working on distance. So my next swim was an 8 hour swim.
Okay.
And I covered or a 9 hour swim rather, and I covered about 10 miles. So I slowed my pace a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's been part of the challenge here, is to try to find that comfortable place that will allow me to continue for that extended period of time.
Yeah. When I was there that one morning, so this was I liked this a lot. My boyfriend sent me a text one night and he said, "Hey, I have to start counting laps at midnight, and then I have to count them until noon. Do you want to join me?" And I was like, "What time?" Because I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 a.m. So of course I wanted to, because that's what I do. So It was cool because I got to help count the laps, and I watched your times. You're so consistent. Like, unless you stop to eat something or get a drink, you are so consistent in your times. It's really impressive.
Well, I appreciate that. And Stephanie, honestly, I cannot tell you how much it really helps me to look up. And though there are times when I can't really recognize folks that I would normally recognize, just to see bodies, warm bodies on the pool deck, they're supporting me. Obviously, I recognized you. You're right there with Steve. Or Steven.
Guys, call him Steve. I call him Steven.
But anyway, it's a charge, and that's another thing that you got to be careful about is you don't want to get this sudden charge and this urge to go ahead and pick up the pace, and consistency has got to be the name of the game here. So that was the 12 hour. That was a big milestone for me, and I went ahead and put that one in honor of a fallen Coast Guard member, one of the fallen Coast Guard members that was in the aircraft that I am looking to remember during this. And the other 2 12-hour swims, I intend to put those in the names of 2 of the other individuals, and obviously one of my best friends, Dale Taylor, the aircraft commander of that helicopter. The 24 is going to go to him. So.
Wow. Yeah. Well, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get into talking about what this swim is for. So to expand a little bit on what he was talking about these fallen Coast Guard members. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio show, where we have Shannon tonight, and he's talking about the swim that he's getting ready to do. He's preparing for a 24-hour swim. It's in honor of some fallen Coast Guard rescue swimmers that he has worked with. Some of them were his very best friends. So he spent 9 years as a rescue swimmer. And so now he's preparing for this 24-hour swim, which we were just talking about the training for it. You started with distance, then you went to time. Now I was there for the 12-hour swim. And you have 2 more 12-hour swims and then the 24-hour swim coming up. And we were just getting ready to talk about the purpose of this swim. So it's obviously a personal challenge for him, but it's bringing some awareness to some families that could use some support, and just really we're so lucky to have our lives. So it's really about being appreciative of everything that you have, too. So if you could talk a little bit more about the cause, where this is all leading, how it's supporting some of these families, that kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that I was assigned at the Coast Guard Air Station in Savannah. And while I was assigned there, I had an opportunity to fly with a then junior pilot by the name of Dale Taylor. Fantastic guy. One of those types of people that you hope you take a little bit of him away with you when you wind up getting reassigned. Just a fantastic man, fantastic leader, officer, accomplished pilot. And when I left there, I went to Officer Candidate School in New London, Connecticut in 2004. Dale and I stayed in touch pretty much from that point forward. Just really good friends with him. And unfortunately, 3 years ago, this February 28th, Dale was involved in a mishap that claimed his life and the lives of 3 other Coast Guard members. And since that accident, I had spent a lot of time trying to figure out how I could honor Dale. And obviously this accident rocked the Coast Guard to its core. A lot of folks knew the 4 men that were on that aircraft. And everybody, to know him was to love him, kind of thing. And, I just really felt like there was something I needed to do to honor him, because he had such a positive impact on me in my life. And so this idea came in my mind about this 24-hour swim after I watched a Navy SEAL speak here in Charleston by the name of David Goggins. Okay. He was here in March speaking with the Marcus Luttrell from Lone Survivor.
Okay.
And David Goggins, his message really spoke to me and my heart about, as you said earlier, using what you have to really have a positive impact on those around you. And David Goggins is a chief petty officer in the Navy and is involved in a lot of ultramarathons, ultra-distance events to bring awareness, as you said, to survivors of those that give the ultimate sacrifice overseas. And that's kind of where the seed started to grow. I left that night from that speaking engagement just supercharged and ready to do something. I felt like, enough time had passed since the accident. I didn't want to overwhelm Teresa, Dale's wife. I wanted to give her time, and it felt like now was the right time to do something. And I've always wanted to do this swim to figure out how much I really have in me, like what's my limit? I want to find that, and I haven't found it yet.
Good.
And
good,
yeah,
you've gone 12 hours. So you've got to go 24. So that's good.
Got to go 24. So I put 2 and 2 together. I thought, I want to honor Dale. It's been almost 3 years. I want to show the world that we do not forget our own.
Yeah.
I want to remind Teresa that Dale was loved, and as well as the other family members of the men that were killed in that crash. And so I just kind of put them together, and I said, I'm going to do this 24-hour swim, kind of an arbitrary number I just pulled out, and I'm going to use that to honor Dale. So obviously one of the major kind of, I don't want to say obstacle, but one of the things I definitely needed to address was I needed to make sure that Teresa was going to be was going to be okay with this.
Yeah, yeah, because that's a lot on her too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. And so I got in touch with her and told her what I'd like to do, and of course she was incredibly excited about it, and just said, Shannon, this is coming at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Timing is so important and things like this, and 3 years, it's just showing her and their two boys, their two young sons that Dale has not forgotten. Yeah. And I asked her, I guess the next thing was, well, how do we I want to benefit you and your boys. How do we make this happen?
Yeah.
And Teresa had, since the accident, gotten involved with a nonprofit group known as Operation 300.
Okay.
Which is an organization that provides support to children of military members who have been killed overseas.
Okay.
Offers them activities like summer camps and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and she
That's
said,
really nice.
Shannon, why don't you go on the website and see what you think? Let me know. She said that her and their two boys had been involved with Operation 300, had gone to the summer camps and things like that, and they absolutely fell in love with it.
Mm-hmm.
Operation 300, incidentally, was put together from the family of a fallen Navy SEAL by the name of Aaron Vaughn,
Okay.
who was killed in a helicopter crash on a mission known as Extortion 17. And so this was put together by his family. Teresa is now involved with Operation 300. Dale and Teresa's boys are engaged in the summer camp activities and everything else.
It's perfect.
It just seemed to work perfectly, and I fell in love with it. I went online and I looked at Operation 300, and I saw just the love that goes into those children. The time that is spent with them, and as Teresa told me, you can make up a lot of things. You can't make up time.
Yeah.
And it's a smaller sort of grassroots organization, Operation 300.
Which is great because so much of the money goes directly to
exactly
the cause at that point. Sometimes with some of the larger organizations, there's a lot of corporate not corporate, but it's administrative costs to it. So it's great that it's a smaller organization.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And so that whatever contribution you make, it's going to go to who it should go to.
Yeah.
And that was kind of Teresa's thought behind it. She said, Shannon, it's your thing. You do it, but this would be something I would suggest you consider. And like I said, I mean, it took me 2 minutes on that website, and I was like, this is the one. This is what I'm going to do this for. And and with that, I put together a team of folks that I know I can really count on at the Coast Guard Law Enforcement Academy, and Steven happens to be one of them.
You can call him Steve. I'll call him Steve the rest of this interview.
Okay, so Steve happens to be one of those guys, along with a few other folks that are very good friends of mine, and it's been a heck of a ride so far. I'm really excited to continue on the progress, and completely honored at this point to have Councilwoman Kathleen Wilson from Charleston City Council on the team as well. So
yes, it was great to meet her that one morning whenever I was helping to count laps.
Yeah, she is an amazing woman. To be perfectly honest with you, I really didn't quite get a sense of who I was dealing with in Miss Wilson until I talked to her, and then I went home and she said, "Go ahead and pull me up on YouTube, and you'll get a little more of an understanding of kind of the things that I'm involved in." And so I was just like, okay. And she just very kind of nonchalantly said that. She's very down to earth.
So
this
humble.
woman is amazing. Right? So I go on home and I pull her up on YouTube, and my mind is blown immediately. She is one of the most elite swimmers in the world.
Yes.
As far as open water. So.
Yes. So some of the things that what did she say? The English Channel. I can't list all of the things. In the show notes I will put her link because it's incredibly impressive.
Yes.
The English Channel. I know she mentioned Molokai, which there's an island called Molokai in the Hawaiian Islands.
Yes.
And I have been looking at paddling the Molokai Channel, and so I already did some research on my own to see how hard it was to do a stand-up paddleboard across that channel. This woman swam it.
Yes.
That is just, it blew my mind when she said that. And she's so funny and she's so sweet. And
yes.
I mean, you would, she's obviously a badass, but
completely.
She's so sweet, though.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
She's in a tiny little frame. She's got this smile that just lights up a room, and she is accomplished in so many areas. Obviously, in local politics with the great city of Charleston.
Yeah.
And then she's the harpist for the Charleston Symphony Orchestra.
I forgot about that part.
I mean, this woman, there's no end to what she can do, and I am so humbled to have her on my team. She is just immediately, as soon as she found out about it, she has just been completely on board with this project. So that's fantastic.
So what kind of tips has she given you that you didn't necessarily have in your plan before?
Yeah, so Miss Wilson has really talked a lot about in our brief meetings. It seems like her focus is really about the mind aspect of this. Okay. And making sure that my mind is healthy for it.
Right.
And folks that would say that you jump out of helicopters for a living, maybe your mind isn't quite healthy. I don't know, but
I think it's cool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. But now she so mind health, obviously making sure your mind is right before every event, and then diet is a big part of this.
Yeah,
so,
diet is huge. Yeah, and we'll talk some more too if you ever have any questions about the nutrition side, because that's really where I excel.
Yeah.
The performance stuff is great and the training stuff is great, but you really have to have that nutritional piece. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit too, because I want to talk about some pre long hours, whatever, fill in the blank.
Super endurance.
Yes, yeah. During and then post. So we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back, and that's actually what I want to jump into next is the nutrition. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio program, where every Tuesday night we are on live on kinetichifi.com from 9 to 10 p.m. And you can find all the archives on my website, skfitlife.com, and will be on iTunes really soon. So you can find us on there too. And all these links are always on my website. So tonight we have Shannon, and he's talking to us about his upcoming 24-hour swim in honor of some of the fallen rescue swimmers for the Coast Guard. So I met Shannon through my boyfriend. He's in the Coast Guard. You may not know this. It's really funny. So I spent 6 years in the Navy, but my very first introduction to military in general was when I was a lifeguard. And one of the guys I worked with, he had been a rescue swimmer. And I was like, that sounds awesome. So, but then the wait to be a rescue swimmer was really long. So they were like, why don't you check out the Navy's rescue swimmer program? And I was like, yeah, sure. Then I talked to them, and they're like, what about this nuclear engineering program? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I was going to school for engineering. Yeah, I'll go to school for engineering. Angel, give me a job. So once I got to boot camp, I really wanted to be a rescue swimmer, but I had already signed up as a nuke, so they said no. So it's really funny that this whole rescue swimmer thing has come full circle, because I thought it was the coolest thing ever when I was 18. So anyway, Shannon, he was a rescue swimmer for 9 years. Now he's preparing for his 24-hour swim. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your nutrition. So what you do before you get ready for these long swims, what you do during, and what you do after, and maybe some of the things that you've learned as you've extended your time in your swims.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, as far as the diet goes, I try not to overthink it too much. We've all heard almost ad nauseum, about the things that you're supposed to eat and the things you're not supposed to eat. Simple sugars and junk food and stuff like that maybe satisfies you for a minute, but you burn right through it, right. And then you're lower than you were before you started. And that's really just about as simple as it gets as far as the junk goes. That said, if we're being honest here, I mean, I love a burger and junk food as much as the next person does. But the reality is, if you want to function, it's not going to get it done. So my goal is to swim this 24-hour swim without having someone have to pull me out of the water. And that's a very serious goal of mine, and I'm very determined. So I have to exercise the discipline as I get closer to this 24-hour swim to make sure that I'm putting the right things in my body to get the optimum performance.
Yeah.
One of those things that I've been turned on to is something called frog fuel.
Okay.
Which is from, I think it's called Frog Performance is the name of the company. It was put together by 2 Navy SEALs and I believe a physician. But basically, it's a gel pack, like you see at a lot of sports stores and nutrition stores, where it's easy access, very quick to, kind of take it in and start feeling some of the effects from it. The important part about this particular product, though, is it's 10 grams of medical grade protein.
Yeah.
So the absorption into your body, into your muscles, is almost instantaneous. And that's very important when you're talking about ultra distance events, whether that be running, swimming, the obstacle courses or what have you.
Yeah, we used frog fuel last weekend.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and you do get an instant charge out of it. Mm-hmm. Some of I think they make like 4 or 5 different types, and some of them have varying amounts of caffeine in them. But there's 10 grams of medical grade protein and some of the better carbohydrates for you.
Right.
And it gives you that charge and. Obviously there are a number of peaks and valleys that you'll see during a 24-hour or 12-hour swim, as I've already kind of experienced.
Yeah.
So generally try to take one of those when I'm in a valley, when I'm in a dark place. Try to get one of those just to kind of boost the morale and make me feel a little bit better. But protein leading up to an event, obviously. I mean, I think I've read before. When you're in a significant weightlifting program or what have you, you should be taking about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And I don't know. Some
people go crazy up to 2 grams.
That's a lot of protein, and you got to really be trying to do that. And I can't say that I'm to that extreme, but I definitely try to take in a couple of protein shakes a day. Chicken. My freezer's loaded with tilapia right now.
Okay.
Just to maintain what I have muscle-wise.
Yeah.
And then, a day or two before these events, really start concentrating on the hydration aspect.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can cripple one of these swims faster than not hydrating. You get a cramp in the arch of your foot, which then travels up the back of your calf and into your hamstring, and you're done. I mean, I get a few cramps over during these swim sessions.
Yeah.
And just from my experience as a helicopter rescue swimmer, I know how to kind of mentally check out and get that worked out very quickly,
right,
so that I can keep going. Because when you're 100 miles offshore in 30, 40-foot waves trying to put somebody into a rescue basket, you can't really afford to lock up at that point. So there are some things that we can do to try to combat that.
Yeah.
But after 10, 12 hours in the pool, getting a cramp that's that significant could mean the difference between you succeeding and not succeeding. So hydration. I mean, I'm pounding the water. It's like a coworker says, drink till you float kind of thing.
Floating's good when you're swimming 24 hours.
Yes, it is. I could use all the help I can get. So
yeah. And
then,
that's nice too, that your nutrition is right there and is readily available to you, versus something where you're out on a run or you're out on a trail, something like that. It's all right there and easily accessible.
Exactly. And again, I mean, the mental aspect of this, to get into one of those dark places during one of these swims and look up and to see Steve there holding up a packet going, "Hey man, you need to take in some protein."
Yeah.
It's a charge emotionally, to know that I've got folks on either side of the pool that are pulling for me and reminding me. And believe me, you need to be reminded during these events. I mean, just the mental aspect of this whole thing, I can't stress it enough. It's just, it's crazy. I mean, you check out, then you check back in, then you check out, and to have the folks at the end of the pool holding up something saying, "Take this," because you need it or you're not going to finish. That's very important.
It's just so different, I think, for the swim. Like I said before, I do have experience swimming. For me, and most people will, they have ran a good distance. It's so different when you're running versus swimming. I mean, swimming, you're in a bubble. You can't hear anything. You can't listen to music. I guess maybe they have underwater headphones. Anyway, but you're in a bubble. You're isolated. You're weightless. Let's talk about that for a little bit. I want to talk about a couple things that people may not realize could happen to you. So I asked Steve the other day, he said, oh yeah, we just finished up because I had to leave before the 12 hours were over. And I said, how's he doing? And he goes, he's pruny. So from being pruny to some of the other things, potentially hypothermia, people don't really take that into consideration. What are some of these challenges that you face that people may not realize?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is the pool that I've been training in and of itself is just a fantastically maintained pool, but it's 25 meters. And when I say it's like being in a hamster wheel, that is no joke. I mean, I no sooner get into a stride and I'm at the wall and I've got to turn around and go back. So, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of that is just grueling. And I want to say that, some folks from your audience may be listening to this right now and thinking, this is extraordinary stuff and it's crazy and there's no way I could ever do that. And I would venture to say that you're completely incorrect in that. I believe that it really comes from what's inside you and your discipline to and your motivation to get something done. I believe you set a goal and we all have it in us to do that. I'm not some superhuman person. I just want this really bad.
Yeah.
And so that's more of a mind thing than a physical thing, but just hitting those walls, going back and forth and hitting in a 25-meter pool, it's pretty grueling.
Yeah.
The next thing would be chafing. So, a lot of folks, you see these open water swimmers like Kathleen Wilson,
right.
she literally cakes herself with a substance that helps to combat chafing, blisters, and she's told me that she's blistered so bad at bathing suit lines that she's actually bled.
Oh,
That's,
you think about that. Yeah, bathing suit lines,
yes.
or even like where your
skin on skin.
Skin on skin, your armpits, even like your thighs, might touch. That's
right.
Oh, that would be hard.
And it is. But what I found is as these swims have progressed, some of those things have kind of dissipated. But Stephanie, you came to my rescue on the last one and brought me some Vaseline, which I definitely needed. I
buying Vaseline at 4 a.m. It was
random, but I needed it.
I loved it. I love helping with stuff like that. I love random stuff.
Well,
like
it was it's the little things that
Yeah.
make just such a huge difference. That particular time, I was experiencing blisters on my shoulders from where the side of my face and my chin was hitting the ball of my shoulder, and causing first a nice little strawberry, which then developed into blisters. And
Wow.
you got to work through those, And it's all about, like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, is what are my limitations? I want to know what my limitations are, and overcoming some of those obstacles that are in your way.
Yeah.
Wow. The other, I guess the biggest one of everything, though, yes, temperature is a factor. I mean, when you're in water that's less than your own body temperature, eventually your body is going to want to match that.
Mm-hmm.
So folks have been known to get hypothermia. We've rescued, folks down off the Keys and the Bahamas and, even further south that were experiencing hypothermic conditions, and we all know how warm it is down there. So that is a factor. And that's why I swim with a swim cap. I feel like it will lock in some of the heat from my head.
Okay.
But
that's it. I mean, you don't have a wetsuit on for buoyancy or anything.
No.
You're just
Yep.
shorts and a swim
That's
cap.
it. Exactly. And honestly, I don't really feel the temperature effects until Steve and the guys pull me out of the water.
Okay.
And once I've stopped moving, I more or less just kind of almost fall into a fetal position.
Yeah.
And really start to get cold, so they have to make a conscious effort to stand in front of me and behind me, wrap me up in towels, and make sure that I don't pass out or anything like that.
And you were saying that vertigo. I didn't even think about vertigo.
Yeah.
Because you are, to explain that a little bit. So you're, your head's down and you don't have any sounds around you and you're weightless. And
it's and that's exactly it. Is you're in the water for that extended period of time, so you're somewhat weightless. I don't get out of the pool for 12 hours, so I'm basically buoyant for that whole time, and I'm overexerting, really. I mean, I'm working at a pace that my body's not accustomed to. I don't do this every day.
Yeah.
So
and
again,
your pace, I mean, it's a good pace. It's like I said, you're very consistent in your pace. Sometimes you just kick it in for a couple laps, but you're very consistent in your pace.
Those quick bursts of energy that you see is one of those times when I'm in a dark place.
Okay.
And that's to kind of shake everything loose and, like Shannon, snap out of it. You got to get back and get focused.
Yeah.
And so I'll really get my heart pumping for 2 or 3 laps to get myself woke back up. Because
that's so interesting because from a spectator standpoint, it seems like you just like, yay, like you're excited about, but so it was
it's
kind
dark.
of the opposite.
When you see the next one, now you'll kind of understand. So he's in okay, I know what's going on now. I'm in one of those valleys, and that's how I work to shake it out. Now Kathleen may advise me to not do that because it may be energy management at that point.
Okay.
But again, getting beyond the 12 hours, I'm not really sure what to expect. But so far, I've been told that every swim that I've done, my last hour has been my strongest.
That's really great.
Which is a good sign.
That's a great sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Oh, that's really great. Yeah, I know you're going to do it. I'm just excited to be able to.
I appreciate it.
To see it. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Stop Chasing Skinny radio show. I want to go ahead and just go over a few more things with the training that Shannon's going through for his 24-hour swim because we were talking a little bit about, any overuse injuries. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing for your cross-training piece of your training.
Yeah. So, one of I think the critical aspect of this, honestly, right now is flexibility. If I don't focus on flexibility prior to a swim, I'm going to be more likely to experience cramps or really some sort of muscle failure or a tear, something that would maybe be more of a significant injury, which could be a showstopper, and I don't want that. So, so flexibility is a big part of it, and taking a look and seeing honestly what I need to improve on. And ever since I've started this venture, I've really been focused on the swim, Stephanie, to be honest with you. I mean, I've worked on diet some, but it's really been about the swim. Prior to swimming, I was running the Ravenel Bridge, a couple times a week. I was doing a lot of weightlifting and things like that. But as the swim started, it's always a balance, right? So, you don't really find marathon runners in the weight room, benching and squatting and stuff.
But if they did, it would make their running a little better because they need to do some cross training.
Yes,
right?
yes. And so it's tough to do that, though. It's tough to find a good balance because what I found is if I really get into the weight room and I push a lot of weight around, then I don't really function as well in my swimming. And the reason for that is because I'm not concentrating on my flexibility.
Yeah.
So it's really a balancing act between flexibility, diet, muscle strength, muscle endurance, cardiovascular endurance, and putting all those aspects of fitness together so that you, again, are operating at optimum. Yeah. So flexibility is a big aspect of what I'm working on right now. I've hired a trainer, which you met, James. Great guy, very, very knowledgeable, local Citadel graduate, and is really providing me with a lot of stretches that I maybe wasn't accustomed to as a rescue swimmer, some new stuff that I haven't seen that have proven to be very, very good for me. Yeah. Getting in the weight room some, and continuing on with push-ups and things of that nature.
Yeah, the body weight stuff.
Exactly.
I'm glad you said that because that's what I see with a lot of runners too. And then one of my other guests that I had on here, he's a trainer and he specializes in muscular imbalances. And his whole formula was he focuses on flexibility or mobility or flexibility first, then stability, and then strength. So those are kind of the things that he focuses on, which is exactly what you just said. And a lot of times when somebody thinks of an endurance event like this, whether it's running or swimming, they think about just swimming, or running. But that flexibility is key. If you don't have the flexibility, you're not going to have the endurance or the strength to get through it, or you're going to have injuries.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you talked about that. I kind of want to shift gears a little bit right now, and I want to get back to the Coast Guard stuff, because I didn't even realize that it was a possibility for me until like I said in my earlier story, I met somebody who had been a rescue swimmer, and I thought it was really cool. But that was all. Like I didn't really follow up on that piece of it. I joined the Navy, which was awesome. But so I want Shannon to talk a little more about the Coast Guard, what it offers. It's some really great opportunities. So can you share a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. So I've been very fortunate. I joined the Coast Guard, like I said, in 1993 right here in Charleston. And, I just really have not looked back since. It's been just a fantastic career. And I've been afforded opportunities that I honestly never would have dreamed when I first walked into a recruiter's office at 19 years old. I had no idea what I was really getting into. I thought I did. I had visions of my mind of Baywatch or Miami Vice. And yes. The recruiter says, "What do you want to do?" "Well, I want to go out and bust druggies." I didn't even know about this rescue swimmer program. This is before Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher got a hold of the program for the Guardian, and obviously before Hurricane Katrina hit, and we all saw what the Coast Guard and Navy and Marine Corps did for that city following the storm there. But 3 years at a small boat station broke me in the right way. I got a little bit of everything. Got some search and rescue experience, got some law enforcement experience, but my heart has always been in aviation. Okay. I'm a private pilot on the outside.
Great.
So I just, I grew up, my dad was in the Air Force, and so I've just got an appreciation for that. I've always, growing up in Charleston, spending a lot of time in Folly Beach in the water there, or at the swimming pools on the Air Force Base. And so here it is, the Coast Guard's got a program where I can put the two together. I can get in aviation and swim as a helicopter rescue swimmer. And, when I first decided that was the career path I was going to take, the folks that I was at my small boat station with all looked at me like I had a lobster growing out of my head. Basically, Shannon, have you ever seen one of these guys? Do you know what you're not it. You're not what they would be looking for. And I said, okay, cool. I appreciate that. I'll take that and run with it.
Yeah.
The waiting list for the Coast Guard swimming program back then was almost 4 years. And they only take 6 students per class back then.
Wow.
So it's a very, it's very near and dear to my heart. I guess I'd be biased, but it's a special program. And it's routinely a 50 to 75% dropout rate.
Okay.
And folks that have seen anything on the Air Force pararescue jumpers or the Navy SEALs or Force Recon or any of those specialized sort of things, they'll understand what goes into a program that demands so much of an individual physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Well, the Coast Guard, this is their answer to that. And like I said earlier, it takes about a year to get through the program, and so after 4 years, I graduated as an aviation survivalman and earned my wings as a rescue swimmer, flying on H-60, what the Coast Guard calls Jayhawks, but most people are familiar with the Black Hawk.
Okay.
Same airframe, and flew on those for 5 years. And then transferred to Savannah, where I flew on the H-65 Dolphin, which is what Dale and I flew together.
Okay.
And but yeah, it's just been a heck of an experience. I mean, getting to be the individual that bridges the gap between life and death for someone, 150 miles offshore in the middle of a hurricane. You're sitting in the doorway, and you get to be that person to go out and affect that rescue.
Yeah.
And that said, obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if it weren't for the skill, determination, and bravery of a lot of folks on the team. 2 pilots and a hoist operator, flight mech as we call them, are also part of that team. And one person is the weak link in that scenario, and you don't make it back.
Yeah.
So teamwork, big aspect of this, and it's just such a joy, and it's to be part of an organization that that would risk their own lives to help others. I'm so honored to be surrounded by folks like that every day.
I think they're pretty great people.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. It's interesting to hear you talk about it. It's really interesting. I randomly get messages from people who see my military experience on my blog, and then they'll ask me a question. They'll say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this or that." Not too much about Coast Guard, but occasionally I'll get somebody who asks about the Coast Guard because the Coast Guard may offer something the Navy doesn't, or something like that, or they've had that connection with the Coast Guard. But yeah, that's really cool. It's nice to have that opportunity to be able to serve your country in that way.
It is.
I think a lot of people may have heard of a rescue swimmer. They may not have. Probably after that movie, they all have. But
yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. I get comments about that a good bit. Most people ask about the Guardian, hey, is it really like that? And they did a pretty good job with that. We had a lot of several rescue swimmers that worked on staff for that movie. And,
that's great.
And to try to keep it as true to form as you can. Now that said, it's a movie, it's not a documentary, so
right.
Some of the things they had to change up, like some of the training aspects and all. But I tell you, as far as the realism during the rescues that are in that movie, they did a fantastic job. It looks, and I was in the movie theater in Washington, D.C. to watch that, and it took me right back to some of the rescues that I've been on where, I'm in the water looking up at a helicopter and I'm bobbing around like a cork in a wash machine, 30, 40-foot waves,
wow.
Are pretty standard off the North Carolina coast when you get a nor'easter or a hurricane out there. So
wow, that's incredible.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch the movie again now, just because you said it is quite real.
Yeah, they did a good job. So
yeah, that's great. Well, one more thing to wrap this up. I want you to share a little bit more, or just recap how people can find out more about the event, I guess it is an event on February 28th, and just that it's. So you are part of the Coast Guard. This event is not necessarily sanctioned by the Coast Guard,
correct.
But it's all together. So maybe a little bit more on that.
Yeah. So the idea was mine, and so and the reason why I say that is it's important to note that the Coast Guard isn't officially backing this. I'm not acting on behalf of the Coast Guard. It's kind of one of those legalities that I had to be made aware of before I really got involved in this thing, is to make sure that it's clear that the Coast Guard isn't pushing any one nonprofit organization. This is really about me and about honoring Dale and the three other crew members on the aircraft. The event itself is going to be on February 27th.
27th, okay.
At 2:28 in the afternoon is when it'll start, and then it'll finish at 2:28 on 2:28.
Okay.
The next day, 24 hours.
Okay.
And it's going to be held at the Martin Luther King pool downtown Charleston, which is a 50-meter pool, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's really the gist of that. Is it's just need to make it clear that it's my project, not being legally backed by the Coast Guard, and that any financial contributions that folks want to make that are interested in backing this, that money is going to go 100% of it to Operation 300 in Lieutenant Commander Dale Taylor's name. I guess that would be the other legal aspect, is to do this the way I need to do it. I need to make sure that no money touches my hands at all.
Yeah,
and,
which is so much easier. So we're gonna put the link in the show notes too.
Exactly.
So that if anybody wants to donate, they can directly through that link.
Great.
Which is so much easier.
So I'd say interested people can go to Operation 300's website. Just Google Operation 300.
Okay.
And there's a lot of information about that organization itself, and you'll be locked on. You'll be very impressed with what those folks have going on there. And there will be a link at a later date that will show my swim. It's not done yet. We're still working out some of the details of that, but. You should be able to go between now and February 28th of 2015 and be able to see a little more about the the swim. So.
Okay, great. And so if somebody wanted to just stop in, they can just stop into the pool during that 24 hours and.
Yeah, I would encourage it. That
Okay.
would be a huge
but-
help for me, and I appreciate that, Stephanie. Yeah, so I mean, during regular business hours, the pool will be open, to the public to go in, and we're going to try to make a way where folks can actually just contribute on site if they want to.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
So we're working on some of those details, but yeah, folks can come in, and it stands to be a pretty decent event. It seems like there's a lot of folks that are already interested in it. I got just recently this week coming back from Hawaii, I got an email from a woman that's up in Connecticut that's interested in learning more about this event and how she can contribute. Evidently, there's a huge contingent of 6535, which was the tail number of the aircraft.
Okay.
A 6535 contingent that supports anything anything like this.
Oh, great. Okay.
As Lieutenant Thomas Cameron was the co-pilot of that aircraft, and he's a graduate of the Coast Guard Academy in New London. So a lot of folks interested in this, and my hope is that we get a really good turnout that day, and that folks have an opportunity to, remember some of our nation's finest right alongside me. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much. And we will have all those links for you on my website, skfitlife.com. So you can find all those links. And if anybody stops out there, I will be there myself. So you can come say hi to me. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, listeners, for listening to us. You can find us every Tuesday night from 9 to 10 p.m. on KineticHiFi.com.
If you think romance is dead, no, find an old jukebox full of 45s. Pop a nickel in it and it all comes back.